In our first reading, we hear the famous David versus Goliath story. It's certainly the classic underdog story, where the good guy, the little good guy in this case, surprisingly defeats the really big and intimidating bad guy. It says, quote, "All the Israelites fled from Goliath when they saw him. They saw how big this guy was, and they all ran away. He was strong, he was big, he was intimidating by his size and by his power." And then walks over this small, young, courageous, faith-filled boy named David. He tells the king, King Saul, that he will stand up to this big guy and face him one-on-one. With all the odds stacked up against David and his peers full of fear, he tells them that the Lord will help him to defeat Goliath. David knows what he is doing is right, and he trusts God completely in this matter, even when it doesn't make sense and all the odds are stacked up against David. He has complete faith in God. He literally places his life in God's hands, because he knows that God is more powerful than any man. Which leads me to ask you or I the question, who or what are the Goliaths in our life? Whose authority intimidates you? Who is everyone afraid to stand up against today? In Hollywood and across society, we've been hearing about and witnessing this Me Too movement of women standing up against powerful men in authority who abuse their power and are now being held to account. We just celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Dr. King Jr. was certainly the David of that time when it came to the issues of equality for people of color in the United States. Unfortunately, in Canada, we still face several Goliaths. These Goliaths wreak havoc and fear amongst the people. Are we strong enough, courageous enough, faith-filled enough to stand up to the Goliath of a government that demands all people, all organizations, support abortion? Or the Goliath, that pressure that attacks the beauty and the sanctity of marriage between one man and one woman? Where are the Davids who will stand up to the fear that comes from the aggressive and intimidating Goliath that is these confusing gender ideologies that are pushed onto our young people and corrupt their mind when it clearly says in the book of Genesis that God made them man and woman? My friends, today there are still many Goliaths in our world that need to be challenged. Often we feel ourselves small, insignificant, and not capable of leading any possible change, not being able to stand up to a gigantic authority or intimidating figure. But that's exactly what David did in our first reading. When everyone else was paralyzed by fear, afraid to stand up to the intimidating foe in that battle, in that war, this little, unassuming boy stood up, trusting that God is with him and that this was the right thing to do. And this courage flowing from the Holy Spirit helped the boy David to not only challenge a much superior enemy, but it won the war for Israel in his courageous gesture. When Goliath fell, the whole Philistine army fled. They all ran away because Goliath fell. The lasting image that we have at the end of our reading is David, this young boy, standing over the body of Goliath, with all the Philistine army running away, and all of Israel cheering at David, their new champion, at their victory. It is then that we sing the psalm from today. We sang the psalm from today "Blessed be the Lord my rock. Blessed be the Lord my rock." It is the Lord who gave David the courage and the ability to conquer his Goliath. So too it is that the Lord will give us, you and I, the courage to stand up to the Goliaths of today.